If you have been to one of these sessions before and you've come back, thank you for returning. If this is your first one, welcome for the first time. And iCoTech do a number of events like this every month, and we do another set of weekly webinars which are more technical in the Microsoft 365 space. So if you've got any questions, any feedback, then please do feel free to email us at info@icotechservices.co.uk, and we'll do our best to kind of respond to those questions or any points of feedback that you may have. Cool. So I've given you an overview of the agenda and the topic this week, and it's probably worthwhile then handing over to Giles to introduce himself and go from there. Really, Giles, over to you, mate.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. So as Giles says, it's a roundtable discussion on leadership, which I will be leading. So I do, from a traditional perspective, have sort of a bit of training and a bit of background in leadership or exposure to leadership. So before my work with working in the government, I was in the military. So I was an officer in the Royal Engineers. I went through officer training at Sandhurst, and I'll touch on that a bit later, and some of the leadership training there, and then transitioned to work for TfL and Arcadis, which is a large engineering consultancy, and now I find myself in the civil service, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. So I'll dive right into this presentation, and as Joel says, it's split up into sort of 4 areas, and I'd really like your thoughts on this as well. So do feel free to add any comments into the chat bar, especially because sort of one of my main points that I major on this is being engagement from people, about leadership being that person who engages with their team. So I'd really like sort of your thoughts on what good leadership looks like, or indeed the flip side, what bad leadership is like. So just on this first slide, I've got some information, just some quotes here from a few people, but I suppose kind of the core of this is looking at actually what are the positive things that good leaders bring. What is that leadership? And I like the John Quincy Adams quote: if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. So I think that really kind of sums up what you're trying to do, and you're trying to get people within your team, or those people around you, or those people you work with, you're trying to get them to do more, to be able to create more. So I'll just move on to the next slide. So just looking at some statistics, always good to start. So on the slide, you can see that $160 billion was spent on employee training and education last year. And this is from the Leadership Transitions Report 2021 from Development Dimensions International. 58% of managers said they did not receive any management training. 79% of people quit their job through lack of appreciation. 77% of organizations report they are currently experiencing a leadership gap. Only 10% of CEOs believe their company's leadership and development initiatives have a clear business impact, and 63% of millennials, which I count as apparently, said their leadership skills were not being fully developed. Now, taken in isolation, any one of these may not sort of really show much, but actually I think all of these form part of core development for companies and individuals, in particular companies, how they develop their leaders and how leaders are being developed currently, or as the case shows, not being developed, especially that millennial point right at the bottom, who have actually taken on the largest proportion of working population at the moment. So as you can see, there's a large proportion there that feel that they're not being equipped with the right skills to become effective leaders in their organizations. On the right-hand side, you can see sort of a bunch of other quotes and a bunch of other statistics. 19% of organizations say they are very effective at developing leaders. 56% of organizations are not ready to meet leadership needs, and that's from Deloitte. 58% of managers say they didn't receive any management training, from Forbes. 82% of employees don't trust their boss to tell the truth, which is particularly damning. And again, the millennials quote, and then 1 in 2 employees have left their job to get away from a manager at some point in their career. So all part and parcel of this leadership and management and leadership, and how being an effective leader and being a good leader is really important to developing and bringing on your organization, but also the people that you work with. So what is leadership? So I was looking back at my past, thinking about leadership, and having been to Sandhurst, where the motto is "Serve to Lead." There's a lot of emphasis on leadership, on how to lead people. And what sort of the one point that I really wanted to bring out in this is the sort of where we go through planning of operations. So when I was a platoon commander, this was about how do I go about generating engagement, communication, openness, trust, and the ability to listen, and the sense of integrity with my soldiers. It may be seen on the face of it by people that actually, from a military perspective, you design a plan and then you tell people what to do. There are orders, so you give orders. What actually happens in the background is the soldiers that I was in charge of, I may have had 1 or 2 years of service, or even less. You want to gain all of the information that you can from those people. So if this works across any team, there are people within your team that will have vast amounts of experience. And in order to best create the best plan, you need to engage with those people. In order to create that openness and trust, you need to be listening to your people, because I wouldn't have even half or a third of the information that they had in the experience. So you're trying to build that trust by engaging with them. It also gets them involved in the decision-making process. It gets them to feel as though their voice is being heard. You're building up that trust. You're building up that relationship and the communication with your team. So I think what you don't see from a military perspective is that engagement. And that's what I really want to focus on that side. Is how do you engage, ensuring that you engage in the right way with your teams, and that it's open and that it's honest engagement. And we'll come to a bit further on some methods and ways that I've benefited from and that you could benefit from as well, and how you engage with your teams. On the right hand side, you'll see that I have linked to a TED talk by Untitled Chapter. He's a composer, and he does a TED talk about great composers and how to get the most out of your team, and how to get the best out of your team, and how to be a good leader. And he identifies 2 different types of leadership styles that conductors that he has either worked with or knows have, and how it restricts the performance of the team. So there's what the first conductor has far too much control. It is very much he is directing the orchestra. So he's telling them exactly what he wants them to do. He's very forthright, very directive. This stifles innovation and removes interpretation from that orchestra. So he's not allowing it. He's basically controlling everything they do, which again, if you link it to your business and you link it to the team you work with, if you're very much directing and telling them what to do, those people may feel disincentivized to really take any, create any innovative ideas, or really push forwards with their work in a novel or in innovative way. The other side of it was too little direction. So this orchestra lacked coordination. It lacked an ability to work effectively together, because they lacked any direction whatsoever. They only had very little vague direction. So you can see the balance is required between those things. And I would really recommend going and having a look at this talk by Itai Talgam, and I'll put it in the chat as well. But I really think sort of going and having a look at that, look at the balance that he talks about between those. So I think there's 2 things here. It's engagement that really defines what your leadership is, engaging with people, getting them involved in that process, and then a balance between control, giving enough direction, but also not stifling that innovation, but not giving too little. So I suppose, Joel, from my perspective, that's kind of from my experience within the Royal Military. Some of my work with on my MBA. So what are your thoughts within the companies that you've worked in, and what you see as sort of positive and good leadership in some of those attributes?
Yeah, I think some of the research that I did, ahead of this topic, just trying to put stuff into writing, or into defining what my view was, I guess, on what is leadership. One of the interesting articles I found was on Forbes, which was talking about what is leadership, and it was a very interesting article that I read. And actually, it started off by saying, what is leadership not? Which I kind of liked. I like going, well, what is it not? And some of the points here were that leadership has nothing to do with the seniority or one person's position in the hierarchy of a company. To me, anybody can be a leader, whether you're the soldier on the ground, or you're the violinist in the orchestra. You could be a leader no matter what your hierarchy. And then the second point was leadership has nothing to do with titles. Again, I thought that was really good to raise. And leadership has nothing to do with personal attributes. And the last one was leadership isn't management. And I just thought that was really good because my brain's a bit binary, so I'd like to understand. And leadership is not easily to define, and it's probably one of the most a very complex topic to discuss really and to define. But yeah, looking at what it's not, I thought would help me a little bit in terms of understanding what leadership is not. But some of the definitions that I found, I'll give you one example, and I think there is balance and kind of consistency across both the definitions, even though the language is a little bit different. But here's one: leadership is a process of social influence which maximizes the efforts of others towards the achievement of a goal. So that is a little bit like what you were saying there, Giles, about the leadership into an operation or to an exercise. And I guess some of the key parts of that was that leadership stems from social influence, not authority. So it's not about or power, and it's actually trying to create an environment, the engagement, the openness, the trust, as you put on your slide here, to allow and empower people to go and do the right thing and make the right decisions. So another point here is leadership requires others. I guess that implies that you don't need to be a direct report. So leadership is often, in my mind, especially in Babcock and government, is very much the leader is the senior. The leader is my direct report. He is my leader, or she is my leader. Whereas actually, some of the kind of definition here is that anybody can be a leader. They could be a junior to you, or even alongside you, and they could still be an effective leader. And I guess there's no mention of personality traits, attributes, styles, I guess, or ways of being effective leaders in that definition earlier. But I guess it's for me, it's about creating the environment, and some of those words you're using there: engagement, communication, openness, trust. Exactly what I think leadership is. And in my own interpretation, I don't know where I've heard this, but I don't know if this is written down somewhere, but or somebody once told it to me, but it was almost leadership is making other people achieve what they need to achieve that goal without them even realizing or being told directly what it is they need to do.
Yeah, so if I go back to the quote first of all from Lao Tzu, a leader is best when people barely know he exists. When the work is done, his aim fulfilled, they will say, "We did it ourselves," and that's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And funny enough, I came off. I've just come back today or yesterday from annual leave last week. I don't know if this means I'm a good leader. It probably doesn't. It probably just means that the people who work for iCoTech are good leaders and good managers. But I came back from a week off, my first week off in over a year, I think, and I had 3 emails in my inbox, and everything worked. So I just thought actually that's another good, I guess, marker that your team are good leaders and things just happen. The operation still runs without your direct influence.
Do you think, just from that perspective, from as your company's grown, how do you think how do you think you've created that positive environment with, and I know a lot of your team, so I kind of know sort of what they're like and how they feel comfortable being able to present their own mind and all of this. Have you gone actively about it, or is it just something that's come about from within the company naturally?
I think that comes on to one of our next questions, doesn't it? In terms of, is it born or is it coached? So, but yeah, there's lots of things you can do, and do in an organisation. But I'll come on to that later, Giles.
Yeah.
But I want to raise another point, which was I kind of did another research set, and Mind Tools. If everybody's aware of Mind Tools. If you're not, go on to mindtools.com. And one of their articles was talking about what is leadership, and some of the quotes here was that leaders are people who do the right thing, managers are people who do the right things. Do things right. Sorry.
Yeah. So that's Peter Drucker right at the bit. Management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things.
Yeah, there's all these influential leaders. have all said the same thing in about the same way,
Yeah.
isn't it? So it's
Yeah.
consistent, though. It's a consistent message. And then the leadership definition here was, creating an inspiring vision for the future. Motivates and inspires people to engage with that vision, and manages the delivery of that vision. And then the fourth point was really coaches and builds a team so that it is more effective at achieving the vision. And that's another thing for me. I think is that how to answer your question in summary is you're hiring leaders, hiring the right leaders and the right people to do the right jobs, I guess, is the most important thing. But yeah, that's just what is leadership is such a hard question to answer, isn't it? And that's why I like the idea of looking at what it's not. Sometimes it makes it easier for me to understand.
No, I completely agree. So I guess we'll move on to the next question. Just so it gives us, as we're following on to it anyway. How to create good leaders within your team. So I think this is a really interesting question, and something that's really important for me, because as I've progressed through my career, not only is it about how do I create good leaders within my own team, it's actually how have I progressed through my career? How could things have changed? How could things have got better? How could I have done different things differently? There's that sort of like retrospective look at myself. And sort of one of the main things that I focused on is sort of training and development. From HBR, from Harvard Business Review, several large-scale industry studies, along with their own in-house interviews of clients, indicate that more than 50% of senior leaders believe that their talent development efforts don't adequately build critical skills and organizational capabilities. I would ask those people who are listening actually to really think about what you do in your organization with regards to training and development. Think about it and how it is structured. From my experience, I'm going to leave the military aside because it's a very, very structured training and development process which you have to go through. But looking at the organizations that I've worked in, Arcadis, TfL, and now in central government, looking at the way that the programs from training and development is structured, there lacks a certain structure to it, which really signposts where people need to go. And for example, myself, I went out and found an opportunity and now completing close to the end of my MBA, which I'm completing with collaboration with the government. And I went out and found out, rather than it being, okay, in order to progress to the next level, we need to identify these skills and these areas that you need to develop in order to progress to the next level. So I think what's really important for people to not only from a team perspective, but from your own personal perspective, is really look at how you are, look at your own career, look at how you're progressing, look at how you're training and you're developing, and how do you actually enable those people within your team and yourself to get the best out of your own skills and capabilities. Now, on the right hand side of here, I really sort of focused on actually some of the things that have really worked for me in developing myself and developing those people within my team. So we've all done a course. I would assume everyone's done a course and then got a tick in the box, got a certificate, and gone back to work, and then not really employed that the skill or learning that you've developed on the course, or not all of it, or not even some of it. So I think application of learning to the job and personalized learning, moving away from traditional leadership courses, is really important. So the MBA that I'm studying at the moment is actually an apprenticeship, and all of it is focused on the job learning. So actually you take each module and you apply the information that you learn directly to your work for the 3-month period, and then you produce a product at the end of it, which is a real life scenario. So you're actually applying those skills to your work, which I think is really important, rather than learning abstract skills and then in some future day trying to apply them to your work. Mentoring has been a real benefit for me, both mentoring as in myself being mentored, but also I learned sort of when I joined the civil service and sort of took part in reverse mentoring, and now I have 2 reverse mentoring sessions per month. Absolutely, and I would say reverse mentoring as well as mentoring, but I'll pick on reverse mentoring. It's really, really helped me to see what those people in my team, or those people who I have reverse mentoring sessions in, which is a junior member of staff mentoring me on how I act and how I provide sort of direction, leadership. They can be within your team or outside your team. seeking out one-to-one conversations with those who have faced similar challenges, and that's the traditional side of things. So definitely look into reverse mentoring if you really want to learn a bit more about how you're perceived within a business. Getting feedback, how to give constructive feedback, and applying learning and development opportunities to areas that need improvement. So this is within your team, really focusing on not just this didn't go so well, or this is an area you need to improve. Really thinking about how do I develop and how do I provide opportunities for my team to improve in those areas that I'm highlighting as the areas that need improvement if that person wants to move to the next level. So I think feedback and constructive feedback and learning on how to give that feedback is really important. And then I think something that is sort of changing more recently, with especially working from home, is that personalization of learning and development. Look at your team and think, actually, how does this person best absorb information? It's not just about, okay, here's a Prince 2 course, here's an 8 p.m. course, here's whatever course. Go away, sit there for 5 days, learn everything from a book, come back and then apply it. Actually, maybe that person is better set up through Pluralsight and have a structured learning and progression where they apply different things. Perhaps it's that one-to-one mentoring or shadowing. Perhaps it is a longer course that builds a certain set of core skills which they can apply to the problem. So I think looking at those 4 things would really benefit you in creating those leaders or building on those leadership skills that people already have within your team. So again, I'll fire it back over to you, Joel. What do you think within sort of the wider creating good leaders within your team, but also then the training and development and those points that I've made around mentoring, feedback, personalization, and application of learning?
Yeah, well, if I start with the training piece, I think that your training point around on-the-job learning applies with everything, doesn't it? In terms of technology, I'm a bit of I've got a gripe about training and development more generally across every facet of it, really, because I think that training needs to be done and applied immediately after learning it. Otherwise, you're never actually going to benefit from it. But I think when I kind of went away and thought about the answers to this question, and from my perspective, how to create good leaders within your team, I really think it's a decision. It's a behavioral decision. It's an active, conscious decision to be a leader, in my view, and to I think when I was in my previous roles at Babcock and Companies House, I had great leaders that that inspired me, really, that I learned from, and I learned from their behavioral traits, their actions, their decisions that they made. Even as simple as, I remember Duncan Hardy, the first head of IT I ever worked for, was continually saying, "What do you think? What do you think?" And I was always going to him saying, "Okay, this is my problem." He'd always come to me saying, "What do you think? And what do you think the right thing to do is?" And I'd be like, "Well, you could do this, and you could do that, or you could do this." He's like, "Well, which one do you want to do?" And I'm like, "Well, I think this."
Isn't that your job?
He'd be like, "Yeah, crack on with option A," and then it would fail, and I'd come back 3 weeks later, and I'd be like, "It didn't work." And he'd be like, "I thought not," But yeah, good idea, But it's those. My point is, I learn from actually, following people and learning off other people, as well as the theory in there as well. But so I think if you want to create good leaders in your team, then become a good leader, and just embrace that, and those other individuals that also want to or can become good leaders will follow. But the publications that I looked at, entrepreneur.com had a release on there, but of how an article about how they would create good leaders, and one of the points they raised was engage your team with your vision, recognize potential in your teams, and give opportunities for leadership development, monitor and reward, and be a coach rather than a boss, which I think is that point I raised earlier about Duncan, which was, just try and coach them into it rather than directing and being too directive. If you're being directive, you'll only get an extension of yourself, doing the activity. And I think that's, I've seen that in myself when I've been in project management, asking people to do a task. You get the task done, but if it was the wrong task to do, the buck stops with you, doesn't it, really? So there's some examples there of where it's gone well in my experience and not. The other one was another article I read, which was 5 strategies that will turn your employees into leaders. I don't really understand the first one, other than the first one is teach them to network. Okay, I don't know, but give them the right.
Networking, I suppose it works well with mentoring and networking. It's finding those people that you can learn from.
Exactly, yeah. The next one was give them the right to experience, which again, I think is that kind of, give them the right to come up with the options and say, look, which one do you put the ball back in their court, allow them to make mistakes. And that is the next one, which is allow them to struggle a little. So, allow them to make a few minor mistakes and learn from that, and create an ownership mentality, which I like. You own finance, you own that deliverable, you own that objective. How do you think it's going to best be achieved? And I really do think, and it really comes on to our next point, isn't it? The training and development. Can it be taught? Can it be? I don't know. I guess if you understand the theory of leadership,
we're going to come on to this next.
We are, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I'm trying not to be careful. You've got training and development on this box on the top left, and it's making me think,
I loved your point around the failure in your time in Babcock's, giving the opportunity for someone to fail, but not be a failure. And I think that's a Stanley McChrystal quote, is leaders let you fail, but not be a failure, which is really interesting. And there's another TED talk that I really like from him. Clearly being military, I'm kind of indoctrinated with military TED talks. But it's fascinating to sort of say that when he was a younger officer, and it was head of special forces in the American military, which is actually special operations force, which is a pretty important role. He, at an early stage in his career, completely messed up in a training exercise, and his whole unit got wiped out in a training exercise. And he went to his commander, and his commander said, fantastic, it's a great opportunity for you to learn from this whilst you're in training, whilst you're developing, and whilst you're not out there on the front line and doing something that actually has those extra consequences to it. And I know the military has different set of consequences to making a business decision about a digital tool that you might be trying to decide whether to buy or not. But it does make sense, is allowing those people to make those decisions, like your former boss allowed you to make that decision, potentially allow you to take a risk and allow you to fail in order for you to learn from that experience. But that takes a strong leader, and that takes a strong person above you to allow that, to not step in. And I find this all the time, that I find it's very difficult to not step in and go, oh no, actually you should do it this way.
Yeah, definitely. As ex kind of project practitioner, I find myself always trying to, what are you going to do after you do that task, or what are you going to before it? What do you need to, you kind of get down to the nitty gritty, and you end up kind of contriving, controlling, prescribing exactly what's going to happen, because you kind of operate in that mentality, and that goes against allowing somebody just to kind of, okay, I want this outcome, I want this deliverable in 3 weeks' time, off you go. I won't put my tasks in my plan, I'll just put Tom's going to do this, and trust he does it. But I guess there's a balance, isn't it? But I do think, on the contrary, there's a time and a place to if you've got I guess critical activities, there is a balance between having good tactical delivery capability versus actually a leader, a thinker. There is a balance, and I guess being a leader, a good leader, you have that judgment call of when to apply those practices, when to not say do what you want, but be more directive, versus allowing them to make the decision and make the mistake, and the learning that goes with that. That's important. And it's always, I always find, I don't know whether this is right for this topic, but when hiring capability, I'm always, if the role is of a leadership type role, then I think it's a case of, hiring people that you think could become better leaders than you could.
The potential. The potential.
I'm almost saying, looking at people thinking, can you be better at me than leading? And I'm thinking, if they can, then I'm like, right, this is a candidate that we're going to invest in, because hiring people that are better than you will get a better outcome. But that's pragmatic, isn't it? Common sense in a way.
Okay, let's move to the next question. I don't want to get too far down one.
Well,
So
can I do something different? I know we've got a small number of people on here, so I'm just wondering
yeah,
if we go
sure.
back to another question. Can we just open it up to the call? I mean, is
Absolutely.
anybody, how would you create good leaders? I mean, I'm really interested in other people's perspectives. I mean, Giles are not experts in this field. We're kind of regurgitating information that we've learned
but also we've
found.
experienced things that we've been through. So I mean, we could talk for ages about our experiences as leaders and how people how you perceive them. I mean, in my head, there are sort of a handful of people that always come to mind when I think of good leaders, and they're those people that really pull on that one thread. So it'd just be interesting to see what those good leaders that you have encountered in your lives, what made you think that they were good leaders? What was it that really made you think, you know what, actually, crikey, they're really good?
Is there anybody on the call that wants to come off and share their view on that? It'd be great. It'd be really interesting.
Or you can put it in the chat.
Or you can put it in the chat. But yeah, I think I totally agree. Approachability is key to successful leadership, isn't it? And being kind, being nice, not people not being intimidated by that person. You're just going to get. And I almost think be human. Like I'm sometimes I don't. If I probably do this too much, but I'm almost recognize my own mistakes and I kind of share them with people and go, I'm not perfect, So together, it's that kind of approachability and that feedback is really key.
I would, if anyone is looking, that's an absolute brilliant point, Lauren. It's something I'm really interested in about creating an organization that gives people the space to actually ask those questions. That whole kind of comment, there's no such thing as a stupid question. I'd recommend this book, The Fearless Organization by Amy Edmondson. She's an HBR writer, and she's a lecturer at Harvard Business School. Phenomenal. Creating a fearless organization, psychological safety. How do you create those environments where people feel they are comfortable coming forwards, either from a work position of, okay, we could try things differently, or indeed actually calling things out that may be going wrong or that they feel isn't right. So especially at the moment when you've got a spotlight on how we actually work with each other, how we respect each other, it's actually having that space to be able to feel comfortable calling things out that potentially don't feel right. So I'm a massive fan of that. I think you're a really great point.
Things to add, if you don't mind.
Please.
Yeah, so when I think back to some of the people that have been brilliant leaders and compare those to perhaps a couple that have been shocking, and I try to obviously be more like the first, but you don't always get it right. But if I think about their traits, the good people are not micromanaging. I think that's what the bad leaders do. And good leaders have a mixture of styles and adapt to the people that they're leading at that particular time. So various people at different stages in their work or in their career might need different styles, or even just for a different role. You might need something at different times. But one thing that really strikes me is a good leader allows you to be you, but also to ask questions, to make mistakes, but allow you to do that in a safe environment, and potentially to guide you with as much guidance as is needed, without that too much of a control. So I think it's a mixture of a whole host of things that I think makes a good leader. And I suppose I'm thinking about a coaching style there as well.
Dawn, from your experience then, if you do it on, the contrary, what makes a bad leader in your experience? And what are the kind of, the things that you kind of might have experienced in your career that would stand out as bad?
I've experienced a few of them. So I've experienced micromanagement, which does not work because you can't get on with your role, being constantly asked about what you're doing, and even when you're quite a senior person, some people just are really shocking. and there's no trust. So that's a really important area to think about. And particularly, over the last 18 months where people have been working from home, I just wonder how those micromanagers haven't had heart attacks. I think the other thing that they might do, depending on who they are, but some might actually decide that you've done something wrong without telling you that they wanted something done in a particular way. So they wouldn't give you guidance, but they wanted you to do it in a different way, and effectively, they could have led you down that path, or they could have deliberately allowed you to do something that they didn't want, but they wouldn't tell you what they actually did want.
So giving you that space, and I think this links to Kirsty's point, and thanks Kirsty for the message in the chat. I think it links to that, recognizing that people might need extra time because you're developing people. You're not employing someone who has all of those skills in the role immediately. That person needs to develop, so you've got to give them those opportunities, just like you're saying, Dawn, giving people the opportunity to actually learn from either some of the mistakes, learn from the conflict that is involved, learn from the difficulty. Because I think with regards to your point about micromanagement, it's an easy route for managers, leaders, or the boss or whatever. It's an easy way for them to control the situation. I think when someone potentially isn't performing the way they want them to perform or delivering as against the outputs that they want to, actually stepping in and doing it themselves is an easy way of addressing the issue rather than looking at the cause, which might be that they, as Kirsty said, they may need a bit more time, they may need a bit of coaching, they may need to do a bit of learning, they may need some sort of one-to-one mentoring or something along those lines. But that's the difficult part. That's the hard part. But that's what the leader is there to do, is there to bring that person on rather than stepping in, solving the problem. But in the long term, you're not solving sort of the cause of the problem, you're just solving that symptom.
Well, a good leader really can gauge how much assistance, whatever you want to call that, coaching, guidance, instruction, is needed for that particular person at that particular time. And it's difficult. It's not always easy to get right. And sometimes they're taking risks with you, thinking you could do something, and that actually you've never done something before. It could be a whole host of things. But allowing you to grow is a good leader. I think one of you mentioned, I can't remember which one mentioned about 5 minutes ago, that you'd like to employ somebody that you feel would be a better leader than you, and that's great. And sometimes it's hard to tell in an interview. My goodness, interviews. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, let's not get into interviews. We could be here for another 3 hours.
I think
ultimately it is a trust between leader and employee. I don't know how you might describe that. There's a whole host of words that are good, and some maybe that aren't so good. And you know what? I heard you mentioning when I first joined about reverse mentoring. Reverse mentoring. I thought, wow, that's great. I mean, it's a little bit like 360 feedback.
Yeah, it's like 360 feedback, but sort of on a one-to-one ongoing basis.
Yeah, which is way more important, because there's nothing worse than getting to a year end and then you'll, somebody gives you feedback and you think, well, bloody hell, why didn't you tell me?
You could have told me 9-10 months ago.
Yeah.
I agree, Dawn. I totally agree. That's why I'm a real big fan of reverse mentoring.
And how do you introduce that? So if you're starting a new role, or you're in a brand new company, or a new role within the same company, how would you introduce that?
So it is a difficult one. I mean, I think I was fortunate to step into my previous role was in Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, and they had reverse mentoring up and running. It wasn't particularly well sort of advertised. What I would say would be to start small. So if you're in a business unit, or if you're in a directorate or department or an area that's sort of your area, you could potentially start within that and then pilot the scheme. So I'd suggest talking to HR, say wherever you've had it from, or do a bit of research into it and say, I think this would be really beneficial. do that, initiate sort of that pilot, either for you to a senior member of staff or vice versa, you looking for people to reverse mentor you. So you're using yourself as that initial person to prove the pilot. And I think it's a fantastic way. And once people start seeing, especially the junior members of staff, really feel that they're being engaged and involved within the sort of this with the senior staff, you see benefits from them. But then as a deputy director, I see it as well. I mean, the benefits for me are fantastic. So, but you need to prove it and you need to show the benefits of it first.
I think it's really important, and I think it's so interesting that even though the kind of the words are different as to what's good and what's bad, like the sentiment, the kind of the baseline understanding is there. It's what makes a good leader. I think we all know that. It's interesting to think that when you're actually in a live environment, in an operation, Giles, or you're in a project or a program that's going wrong, and it's all pressure, all negativity.
Yeah.
How to stop yourself and going into those bad traits is a real.
You've never got enough time.
No,
we've never got enough time. HR always tends to take a back seat, etc. But yes, I know.
Talk about time. Talk about time. We've got a third one. So do you want to?
Okay, well, we've got two more, but we'll do what we can.
Go for it. Thanks everybody for your comments and your thoughts as well.
It's good to talk to some of you. Natural or learn. So I personally don't think that leadership is something that is you either have it or you don't. Through my training in the military, I've seen some people who I thought were natural leaders. So from the off, I looked to them and they were very charismatic, very sort of, they presented themselves well, they spoke well, they were confident, or they appeared very confident in front of me. But then when you actually realize sort of that's all not a facade, but it's covering up sort of an aggressive, a slightly dictatorial approach to things, you realize that actually there are many different ways of being a good leader. And so I think when I look at the different people that I've had exposure to in the past, especially through my training in the military, and then those people I have exposure to now within the civil service, I definitely think it's something that you can learn. So leadership is about skills and attitudes and behaviors, all of which can be learned. Even sort of charismatic people, you can learn how to do this. So acting lessons. And again, I'm going to bang on about TED Talks again. There's a couple of TED Talks about this, about how you can actually improve your presentational skills, how you can improve the way you go into meetings. It can improve it. I mean, there's one about power postures, which is fascinating stuff. There's psychology behind how you feel when you go into meetings. If you're slumped in a chair and then you go into a meeting and you're like that, actually it has an effect on the way your brain works. If you stand up, take a moment, breathe, it's a fascinating TED Talk. But then there's adaptability and flexibility, which actually Dawn talked about mentioned earlier on. People who excel in leadership balance realism and optimism. They can turn a keen analytical eye to reality, yet remain positive and hopeful. And then when circumstances change, they can recognize this and accommodate it. I'll quickly move on to the other one. A related capability is about tolerance for uncertainty and conflict. And we've mentioned this in several different flavors throughout this conversation. So allowing teams to be in conflict, to be able to work through some of the problems, to be able to fail. So exercise leadership can be anxiety producing. It can cause you to be there like, I just want to jump in and fix this problem because I think I know what it is. But actually allowing your team to work through those problems, to work through those conflicts is absolutely vital for them to develop their own confidence, their own leadership skills. So, I mean, I've skipped through that slide, but we haven't got a huge amount of time left. Joel, is there anything you wanted to add within sort of the learned, or whether you're born with leadership potential?
Do you know what? This is like the most difficult question of all these four for me. Like, is it learned or is it kind of natural? And I still now I can't decide which way I would go. I think it's both. I think because I can't decide, I'm going to go with the cop out, which is both. And just some words and some language that I've stolen from other websites that I've been cruising over the last couple of months or weeks, sorry, to kind of prepare for this, but so one of the statements was leadership is an art rather than a science. It's a set of innate traits refined and perfected over time with education, training, and experience. I don't know whether that to me that says it's an art, which I agree.
But it's saying that you're learning because you're learning and developing over time. So you may be very charismatic and confident. You may be an introvert, but what I think you're showing there is actually, yes, there are some, in the way business works, there are some characteristics that you may have which assist in making you, to giving you like 1, 2, 3 steps up the ladder already. But actually over time you will learn and develop the rest of the traits.
But just a little rubbish analogy that I was thinking of last night is that Lewis Hamilton is obviously a very capable driver, isn't he? And he has had training throughout his younger career, but he had to have a baseline level of experience and talent and natural ability of hand-eye coordination and all the other skills that come with driving a car quickly around a track. If he was unable to drive the car quickly around the track, no matter how much training you have and how much experience you have, you're never going to beat him at that game, So
you're not going to beat him, but you're not trying to be the best leader in the world, which Lewis Hamilton is the best, probably, potentially, I don't know, one of the best drivers in the world ever. So I think it's about being a leader, but actually defining, you can be a good leader, but you're not going to be.
You could be a great. You could be a great leader, like all the statements you had and the clips before, or you could just be a good leader and make good leadership
decisions. Which is the majority. Most of us just have to be at the end of the day.
Or you could be rubbish like me, but hey. So the next one was people can become leaders through the process of teaching, learning, and observation, but an awful lot of leadership cannot be taught. And then all the books, classes, education, and training cannot turn a follower into a leader. So these are just some statements I found online. So it's a real kind of mix. But yeah, I think we're not all aiming to be a leader that changes the world, are we?
But I suppose you look at that. So that's a good point, actually. Though I think you're onto a good point there. Because if you look at Apple, for example, Steve Jobs and Wozniacki. So Steve Jobs was the visionary, the person who drove Apple forwards, that made him into the Apple into what it was. He was that visionary. Wozniacki was the person behind it who delivered the technical solution for Apple. So actually, you've got someone who isn't a particularly the leader of Apple, but is still a leader within his field. So I agree. You've got someone who's following Jobs in the way his sort of mind works, but actually he's a leader in his own right. And then if you look at Richard's comment, I think it's having good people around you. So if you've got a high performing team, and that's another conversation for another time, for another talk. Those high performing teams who inspire others to progress and want to do more to be better.
Yeah. And I think it is a balance, I think it's both. It comes back to my point earlier. Is a leadership natural or learned? It's both, and you can refine that skill via learning and implementing what you've learned, as you talked about earlier in your apprenticeship. It's almost for your MBA, it's almost applying those skills day in, day out, and learning and almost being self-aware. I think is important as well. Just being self-aware, but also, as Dawn said, aware of others and what style they need in order to succeed. If they're lacking a bit of confidence, is maybe giving a bit more direction. If they're super confident, is maybe letting them go and winding them up and off they go. Make the mistake, come back, and maybe re-steer them. It's that balance, isn't it? But definitely learning, but having a natural ability will help you in being a leader. That's my view.
Should we move on to the last one?
We should. Yeah. 9 minutes.
Time is short.
Yeah.
So, difference between a boss and a leader. Now, take this with a pinch of salt. Essentially, what we're trying to highlight is the difference between good and bad here. So, this isn't being a boss. It's just a name for this. So, but the comparison between what leaders do and what sort of potentially bosses do, or someone with a dictatorial approach, is really fascinating. So, a leader will coach individuals, whereas a boss, what they're saying here is the alternative is to drive employees. The leader relies on goodwill, rather than the alternative is to depend on authority, generate enthusiasm from the leader, inspire fear from the alternative, say we rather than I. the leader will fix the issue rather than place blame, which I think is really important. And from in the digital world, looking at sort of retrospectives and looking at the way we work and how the team leader or the leadership team should be unblocking the problems the team encounters. I think that's definitely part of it. From my perspective, I spend the most of my time trying to unblock problems that the team are facing so that they can perform. I'm not specifically doing the work. They're doing the work, but I'm just fixing problems that are in their way, and we're removing roadblocks.
Are you fixing the problem or removing the roadblocks? I'm not sure. When I read that statement that fixes the breakdown, that's not fixing the issue, is it? That's almost the word breakdown for me. There is that talk about the breakdown in kind of communication or that process, because it's actually, for me, a leader is not. I'm not fixing it. I'm going to get the right people in the room, and so they can fix it.
But that's another way of fixing. Absolutely, it may not be you going in and fixing, as in, you guys, you're doing it the wrong way. This is how you should be doing it. It's actually, you know what? We need more skills here, or they need more time, or they need engagement from this stakeholder, or however it is. And it can be from an individual or a team. It's actually, how do we resolve it? Much like we talked about the giving people more time earlier from Kirsty's comment, is actually, you know what? We haven't received this report, for example, or this product, but this person just needs a bit more time because they're actually learning on the job on how to deliver this. So you know what? We need to give them some time and space to really finish this and do themselves justice. So I agree. Again, it's sort of hard to write it down in one.
I love this diagram. That's cool.
Develops rather than uses people, gives credit. I think that's a big one. I think the things that I saw from a number of reports was actually one of the biggest motivating factors that staff could have, either in retention or getting them to go beyond, was actually giving them credit for what they are doing and really reinforcing good practice and how people were performing, which is difficult and it doesn't happen a lot of time. It gets forgotten about, or you might do the odd thing, but actually really thanking people. And it doesn't have to be this big fanfare. It's just thanking people for the good work that they do. So yeah, I mean, does anything specifically there resonate with you, Joel, or anyone on the call? Sort of what areas do you think would be sort of most important between a lead, or essentially from that positive side rather than the negative side?
Yeah, I guess it does resonate. I don't know, maybe being that analytical, inquisitive type, I'm probably thinking, my brain is asking me, is there a right time to be a boss versus a leader? Is there ever a right time to do? Some of those words are negative, aren't they? Place blame, says I.
And I think that's
fear.
What they're trying to do, is they're trying to highlight that negativity.
Yeah, but actually being a boss sometimes is making a decision, and sometimes you have to do that, don't you? Yeah, that's my over analytical brain just seeing those words, thinking.
I think you can make a decision. I mean, much like myself in the army, when we were developing a plan, you would go through what we were trying to achieve with the soldiers. They would give their opinion. You'd come back. I would then synthesize that information, create a plan, and then go and deliver my orders. So I'd tell them what we were going to do.